My voice is getting kind of hoarse, so you'll have to bear with me. This video is going to be about the spectrum of INFPs, because I've noticed, and not just within INFPs, but within a lot of the MBTI types, there is huge variation from what their core functioning is, and like what their between the cognitive functions and their actual mannerisms and views, and you can even see it when you look at a video of me versus Maggie Brown, or what's another INFP that I'm different from? Well, for example, if you go look at Maggie Brown's videos, she is a very different INFP than I am. Or if you look at some of the INFPs that have come on NF Geeks, for example, when you look at them versus me, I think INF Patty and I kind of have similar demeanors. You know, you see the variation, and you also see, we hear about the INFP stereotype, and half the time it doesn't even apply to half of us because, it's so varied. And I think the best way to explain it is combining MBTI with Enneagram, because INFPs vary across 3 or 4 Enneagram types. You've got most commonly the INFPs are type 4, which is individualist, which is where I am. Some of them are type 5, which is investigator, which is debatable. Some people think this is mistyping, and maybe they're not an INFP at all, but, I could see it. I mean, I'm a 4 with a 5 wing, so I am an individualist, and I have that creative, expressive side, but then I also am very much in my head and thinking constantly about things. So I could see that. But then you've got the whole other side, which is like the type 2s and the type 9s. Type 2s are the helper, nurturer types, and type 9s are like the peacemaker. They're all the harmony and, no conflict, things like that. So it's the spectrum, because when you put me next to a type 9, or definitely a type 2, you've got like altruism versus individualism right next to each other, Not saying that I'm not, that I don't do things for people, and I'm very empathetic with people still. Even if I'm really individualistic, when I take the time to sit down with people and understand what they're going through, I'm very empathetic, and, I do feel moved to help them in whatever way I'm capable of. But I don't take on people's battles for them. I think that's the biggest difference. I think the more individualist types, they have their values that they hold very strongly, and they empathize with people, and they'll help the people in their inner circle. They will help them, without a fuss or anything. But you don't see them playing the hero and picking up somebody else's cause for them, and less of that than you would with an INFP that's a type 9 or type 2. So it's kind of this. All INFPs are going to have this play between searching for their individual identities and then this sense of empathy towards others, and it's kind of that ratio that causes all the variation within the type. So it's interesting because other types have this too. INTJs vary across Enneagram types. There's most MBTI types, when you drill into Enneagram, you're going to see some variation, because not everybody, the behavioral side of it is not the same as the cognitive side of it. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. So I also wanted to go through the INFP stereotype. and how people are different. How this variation, the stereotype doesn't really work that well for us. Okay, so the INFP stereotype is kind of like the hippie dreamer that is kind of a wimp, really sensitive, like the emo kid. That is the INFP stereotype, like a typical emo kid. Very emotional, the helpless romantic, the aversion to wealth and business type stuff, and I think NF Geeks put it the best when they were talking about heroes and how the hero that's on a quest is always an INFP. They're always like trying to figure out who they are, like Link, and Zelda. He's on this quest, but then he's always getting sidetracked and helping other people. That's kind of the INFP stereotype, like always off doing something in their own little world and fighting for world peace and whatnot. So that's a stereotype. And just with me personally, I mean, I have a number of different ways that I vary from that. The physical nature of it, I originally thought I was an extroverted sensor because I like being physically active. But it's not for a superficial reason. It's not for a competitive reason. It's really just to test my own limits. I'm competitive with myself. I'm not really competitive with other people. And I don't really like team sports for that reason because, I don't know, I just want to take it on myself. Like, I just want to play by myself and see what I'm capable of. But, I tend to do things like swimming, individual activities like running, swimming, cycling, things like that. And there are also things where you can kind of zone out and go into your head while you're doing them, which I think is a little different from an extroverted sensor who would really just be in the moment focusing on these, the actual senses, the actual feel, the actual physical feeling of doing the activity and enjoying living that, enjoying like the adrenaline rush or whatever. For me, it's more therapeutic and also, I don't know. It's hard to explain. I lift weights too. I'm currently into weightlifting, but that's also something you do alone with music on, and it's kind of like a Zen thing. And it's just testing your own bodily limits. So that's one way. I mean, INFPs, I guess, typically don't do that. But maybe I think it's just the stereotype because we're not really a team sport type folks. So I think that's more accurate. It's just team sports, not all sports. INFPs, I'm sure, do plenty of sports. So there's that. And health in general, like I eat really healthy, and I try to live a very healthy lifestyle and a very earth-friendly lifestyle and whatnot. So, we're not so aloof that we don't pay attention to our own needs health-wise. And then, I've already kind of touched on the empathy, sentimentality thing. I do like helping and being there and helping the people in my inner circle that I really care about, and I really just want them to be happy because that, I'm happy when I just want us all to be happy together. But I'm not this pushover, and I live for myself, and I don't really take up other people's fights for them. I want to be stronger and more confident myself, and I want to help others become stronger and more confident in themselves. I'm not like their defender, I want to build them up so they can defend themselves. That's more my approach than nurturing, I don't know. Just stepping in for them. Like, I want to pump them up. I guess that's the biggest difference. Wealth aversion, that one kind of applies because I really don't care about status or being wealthy. I recognize, obviously I work in business, so I recognize the need to generate a profit from doing something, just so you can live the life you want to live. I want to live a pretty simple life, but I also want to be a musician, and that requires buying stuff, and that requires money, so you have to work. So, I mean, as an INFP, I understand the value of money, but I'm not driven by wealth or status. So you can kind of see where that stereotype applies, but it's not 100% accurate. So, and then there's this Manic Pixie Dream Girl thing where, if you've ever seen movies with Zooey Deschanel in it, or, I mean, that's not really an INFP, really, but, I don't know, if you've seen Garden State, Natalie Portman in that, I would say she's kind of an INFP. She's really, it's the quirky, shy girl that the main character male meets, and she's just this super inspiring individual, and she's so fun and weird, and just gets him to loosen up, and, you know, that seems to be a stereotype of INFP girls. And I don't really have I mean, a lot of women get out there and they say that's sexist, and, you know, the Manic Pixie Dream Girl never really has a brain, and she's just like this fun thing, you know, that doesn't really think for herself or whatever. So I never really saw it that way. I always saw it as they're complicated too. They have their own stuff going on. It's kind of the male that is that kind of expects this. They see the idea of her and not the actual person, and they expect her to like save him from whatever his problems are. But the truth is, she kind of has her own issues going on. So I don't have a problem with it, but not all INFP girls are like that, or this like Manic Pixie Dream Girl thing. So. I don't know. I like inspiring people. I'm cool with that. That would be the greatest compliment ever if someone said I inspired them, because I think I'm ridiculous. But, you know, I don't live for that, though. It's kind of just a side effect of being weird. I think people are drawn to that because it's different from everything else that's out there. So, it's not a choice that I make, but sometimes that kind of happens. I fall into that stereotype, I guess. So that's about it. I just wanted to point out, you know, don't look at the stereotypes of any type, because within them there's going to be these weird, you know, spectrums that people will fall in. And so it just kind of shows that MBTI doesn't catch everything. There's still some holes in there that some people claim it's nature versus nurture, where MBTI is the cognitive, you know, the way your brain functions, and then Enneagram is kind of more the learned behaviors, which is an interesting way to look at it. I'm sure that could be debated either way. But yeah, I think looking at them together gives a more comprehensive view of a personality versus making assumptions on MBTI when it doesn't cover all the bases. So look into that. I would suggest figuring out what type you are, and, you know, embrace it, and definitely explore variances in other types. I think that's important. So y'all have a good night.